Hello and welcome back my fellow friends to a new episode of Kerbal Space Program, and I hope you've enjoyed this small little intro there we had. So if you guys can't remember, a couple of weeks ago we've built a nice and beautiful space station in low, or rather medium-ish orbit around Minmus. After that we've utilised that small little space station to build a small little probe, and during that construction of that probe we sadly accidentally broke one of those one of the big solar panels on the space station, and I accidentally forgot to bring any sorts of repair kits with us to that space station, even though that space station is all about building and utilizing the new features of KSP 1.11, where we can attach, detach, build, construct and repair things with our engineer Kerbals. So today's mission is a specific mission actually only to bring some repair kits to the space station around Minmus. However, we're going to do that in a very flashy and beautiful fashion. So that's why we can see a speed build here of a nice space plane. But eagle eye among you already figured out that this plane only has one engine, and this engine is definitely not a air breathing one, it's a nuclear one. So what does that mean? I guess there are multiple options. We can throw that thing somehow into space, but the question is how we're going to throw that thing into space in order to make real use of the beautiful LVN engine on the rear of this beautiful space plane. And while we're still talking about the space plane itself, I personally am super happy how it came out. It looks, in my opinion, very beautiful, very futuristic, aerodynamic, and just generally speaking it has all things you need. We have a docking port, we have crew compartments, we have Delta V, a bunch of Delta V, like 4,000-ish. At this point I'm actually looking a bit adding some additional small rocket engines, because well, the thrust to weight ratio of the LVN is not that super duper great, and I was still debating about the how to throw it into orbit part, not on a grander scheme but rather on a smaller detailed scheme. But anyhow, more on that in just a second once we're going to jump over to the VAB from the SPH. The other thing is we have our CS and everything we need, and we are, as you saw in the very beginning of the speed build, paid a lot of attention to the center of mass and center of lift configurations for easy re-entry. So the idea of it, or my plan to throw this thing into space, is by utilizing a space shuttle like configuration. And it has been quite a while since I did a space shuttle or space shuttle-esque mission on the channel. To be more precise, it's going to be, I think, 10 months ago. Please correct me, you might actually figure that one out more, since I have not opened up the video right now. Anyways, so, but I don't really want to go for a perfect, well, not even a close actually, space shuttle reconstruction, since we're using the Mark II parts anyways, so it's never gonna look like the space shuttle that actually flew in real life. However, the general idea is still the same. We're gonna have an orbiter, space plane, reusable. Well, but it's gonna go further away, and because we are planning to go further away, I wanted to have a nuclear engine. I was actually debating a bit about utilizing, instead of the LVN, some aerospike engines, but I decided to opt at the end for the nuclear one. It gives us more versatility in terms of mission profiles once we are in space, and not longer bound by the shackles of gravity. And because of that, I also was a bit liberate in terms of the actual booster or ascent vehicle design, since we're not using the RS-25 equivalent T-Vector engines as the shuttle engines. So that's why we use these engines, or just generally speaking some engines, on the booster, on the external booster itself. So if you go along this line, it has some similarities to the Buran shuttle, since that had also engines on the main booster stage. Anyhow, And off we go from the launch pad. We have here a quite fast transition actually. And right now we are actually at 1 times the regular speed, so you can see how smoothly it accelerates away. Very straight line. Just in a second we're going to go into slightly faster post-editing time warp, since, well, the launch is, I guess, self-explanatory. There's one little, I wouldn't say, well, it's not an issue, but some small stability thing. We're slightly yawing to one side, which made Wales correcting us slowly but surely turn around. The general rotation after the booster separation was planned, but before that I didn't actually want to have it almost diagonal, almost in a 45-degree angle flying. That was, like I said, because we had somehow went off course, no longer pointing perfectly towards, what is that, towards the east. I was trying to correct it, and that induced a roll. I assume this is because of the single vertical stabilizer, but someone might actually correct me down in the comments below, since I am not studying aeronautics. Even though that would be interesting, honestly speaking. I really obviously love space. The entire channel is space themed, so I might have actually picked the wrong major. Anyways, that's not important. The more important thing is obviously the after we hit orbit with the main booster, I planned the maneuver load, used almost all the fuel of the booster, ditched it, and then wanted to continue burning with the LVN, but you'll see in just a second after we switch back to the space plane, because now I'm just quickly enabling the hibernation on the probe core of the booster in order for it to not run out of out of electricity, since we used not quite all the fuel, since we do want to do a deorbit burn with it in just a second. But somehow the maneuver node got compromised, didn't work quite well, so we did new maneuver node, aka I just eyeballed everything. Now skipping forward to the booster, thanks to the hibernation feature, we still have some electric charge left despite the actual booster not having any batteries. This is a very useful feature, so you might keep that in mind for your own missions. We did a small deorbit burn at apopsis, and then just falling down through the atmosphere. Once we were pointing retrograde thanks to the aerodynamic surfaces, aka the aero brakes, we just used up the remainder of the fuel in order to slow down a bit, do a small entry burn in order to hopefully not burn up, and thankfully we did not burn up. We survived re-entry, gliding down on the parachute power into a nice splashdown, but we tipped over, and that was kind of the end of the top side of the booster. Sadly we weren't able to recover everything, but I still think, generally speaking, we recovered most of it. Like the engines, just lost half of the fuel tank. Maybe a few more adjustments in terms of batteries and some RCS thrusters at the top, and then we could take the booster, recover the booster without it tipping over. Anyways, fast forwarding over to Minmus, doing our capture burn. Minmus gravity super low, we don't need a lot of delta V, just small capture burn, and now I'm just gonna brute force it because I didn't pay, honestly speaking I just didn't care whilst having the encounter with Minmus about the inclination compared to the space station. As you can see here, we're just literally brute forcing it by well, it's not doing the most efficient inclination change, since if we did that on our approach towards Minmus we could have saved a lot of delta V, but at the end of the day these 300 meters per second that we're using right now, honestly speaking, in the grand scheme of budget things, I mean we have I think just under 5,000 meters per second of delta V, so whatever. Like honestly speaking, that's really just peanuts for this mission at least. Now we're just gonna do a nice regular orbital rendezvous as you saw me doing there. I didn't really talk about it right now since I've talked about it a couple of times. There's even a concrete like a special guide video on that topic on the channel, and there's so many others out on YouTube. Even if I did another one, an upgraded version, honestly speaking, the YouTube algorithm wouldn't give it to me, so it would just remain with 20, 30, 40 views at best. And so that's why I'm actually not doing a new version of it. Anyhow, now switching to the space station, because we only have two docking ports, two regular sized docking ports, so the 1.25 meter docking ports, and one of them is occupied by the capsule that we have. Obviously we have the capsule aboard with the kind of quote-unquote escape system, and just generally having a capsule aboard is always good. And the other one was occupied by the small little grabbing tug unit. So I just moved the small little grabbing unit over to some other place, because thankfully we can just grab whatever we want to grab with the claw unit. And that makes it obviously, it looks a bit awkward having that small little thing on the large docking port, but whatever, I just smacked it at some place to park it for the time being. Because, well, the inline docking ports, be that the like the Mark 1 or the Mark 2 docking port, both of them are the regular standard size, aka, like I said, 1.25 meter size. So that's why we had to, well, make some room here. So actually, on this note, this might be a bit, well, not far-fetched, but in a future mission we might actually be interested in expanding this space station in terms of docking ports. So on to docking. As you can see, I didn't talk about it too much since we were a bit close and I pressed the wrong button and we went again further away from the docking port, which was a bit of a shame, but whatever. I used this new opportunity to completely realign ourselves and go with a nice and steady close approach, and with that we have a nice soft docking of the, well, space shuttle, space plane. I'm not quite sure, probably, well, I called it the Mark 2 shuttle, or something like that. God darn it, I can't remember it. Mark 2 Minmus shuttle or something like this. Yeah, so yeah, we've docked successfully, and now it's time for our primary mission, or actually why we are even here in the first place. So first of all, we actually brought a pilot for piloting the craft, obviously, and a engineer Kerbal. Even though we already had an engineer Kerbal, I still thought, why not, let's bring a second one. Definitely not a bad idea on that notion, actually. So I flew over to the large solar panel array, trying to repair it, and they told me we need actually 4 repair kits and not only 1, and we brought 8. So we're gonna use half of the amount that we brought along with us immediately to repair the solar panel, and with that the space station is again 110% operational. Why 110 and not 100%? Well, because, well, we have one more engineer and one more Kerbal, so they probably can do a bit more than actually was planned to do, but details, as I like to say. Well, and with that, I was actually thinking at this point in time about taking the shuttle and flying back, but I really like the view of the space station with the small little Mark 2 shuttle attached to it, and I decided to call it a quit for today's mission, at least here. We have a beautiful space station around a beautiful body with a nice, good looking, futuristic looking space shuttle, and this more or less actually sums up a bit my hopes and dreams for the future, having a nice space, well, not space center, that's a bit too far-fetched, but at least some more space infrastructure in real life as well is my hope, and this kind of embodies it a bit in my personal opinion. Anyways, on this note, I really hope you have enjoyed today's Kerbal Space Program video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Spaceship signing out.